I'm going to put nut plates on this instrument panel for the boot cowl to attach to. Went ahead and marked this off. I went in an inch from the edges and then went on 2-inch centers down the top and down each side. So I'll have 3 on the sides here, which would probably be about right, and then I wound up with 5 on each half of this top, which is probably more than enough, but some's good, more is better. I haven't decided 100% yet. Still vacillating between putting number 6 screws and number 8 screws, but it doesn't really matter. I've got this nut plate jig here, and it's a number 6 for number 6 nut plates, but it's the same dimension as for the number 8s between the rivet holes. The only thing is the center pin is of course larger for number 8 than it is for number 6, so I can go ahead and lay out all the holes, and then depending on what I decide to do there, I can go ahead and either leave this. I drilled these out, started out drilling them with a number 40 drill bit, piloted the holes with a number 40, and then I went up to the number 27, which is a clearance hole for a number 6, and so this will fit in there, and set up with 2 pins on one side and 1 pin on the other side. This is the center pin, which locates the screw hole, and then it has a drill guide here on the other side on one ear, and that we drill that out with a number 40 drill for number 3 rivet, and then you flip this over, and then this pin goes in the hole you just drilled out, and you can use this drill guide to drill out the second hole, and that's for a standard nut plate. Anyway, I'll go ahead and drill those out, and then if I decide to go with a number 6, I'm fine, and if I decide to go with number 8, all I have to do is come along and drill out the clearance hole for a number 8. Got the 6 holes on this side section done with the number 27 hole in the middle and 40 holes for the rivets. We can do the ones up on this top now. Now this goes pretty easy doing them like this. This pin, center pin, just fits in there, and you just kind of have to line it up where you want it. If you have a line, that's a good thing, but just take and drill out the hole, and voila. But the problem I've been having here is this these number 40 holes. This pin is having a hard time. Well, that one slipped in pretty good. On this thicker metal, for some reason, I haven't been able to get these pins to slide in there quite that easy, but that's the way it goes. It just fits in like that. The big pin in the center hole, and the small one in one of the rivet holes, and then you have the drill guide. And voila, you have a perfectly, come on out of there we go, perfectly drilled out hole for a nut plate. Now that one happens to be, like I said, for a number 6. The hole's lined up perfectly for the rivets. So if we just increase the size of that hole for the number 8, and even number 10 fits in the same size hole. I've done some number 4s, and this is a jig for number 4. I bought the rivets from sent me this. It's quite a bit smaller than the ones for the 6s, 8s, and 10s, but the distance between the rivets is quite a bit smaller, which makes it a lot of fun to set the rivets, because they're in right tight while the cleco's in one end. When you hold it on with a cleco, it interferes with everything, and then these are encapsulated nuts. They're not the fixed style of, here's a different style of nut plate here. So this is a fixed style, and that one happens to be a miniature one. It's shorter distance between the rivets here on that one. This is a fixed style number 6, and that has the same ears Well, that one's not a problem to set. But these, with a floating nut in them, you have to be careful not to compress these little ears here, or it'll unfloat the nut. And right now they float around a little bit in there, and it makes it easier starting to screw in the hole. You don't have to have it perfectly lined up. The nut will line up to the screw. Got all the holes drilled. Now we need to, I still haven't decided whether I'm going to drill these out for number 8s or put number 6s on there. Actually, with all of these nut plates on there, number 6s would probably be fine. There's going to be plenty enough strength in the number 6 with that many screws in there. But I need to deburr the holes, and then I'll need to countersink these ones that the rivets go into. Now this is a deburring tool. It's one of different styles. It just mounts into the drill chuck, and it's got a little knife or a little blade here that's spring loaded, and it's tapered on both sides, so as you push down in on it, it spins around and deburrs the outside of the hole with this edge right here, and then as you get in the hole, you can pull back against the backside of the hole, and it deburrs the backside with this edge right here, and then when you pull harder, it just springs in and the whole thing comes out of the hole. Well, that works really good. Unfortunately, these are relatively expensive, and you have to buy a special size for each different size of hole. But they work fast. They're a lot faster than doing it by hand. Especially on a blind hole. A blind hole, you're going into a panel or something that's closed in, you can't get to the backside to deburr it. So I got all those number 4 holes, or they're number 40 holes for the number 3 rivets. I got those all deburred, and I think I'm going to go ahead and just put the number 6 nut plates on this. There's plenty of plates on here. They're plenty close enough together that a 6 screw should be fine for that. So I've got a different style of deburring tool for that. This one is just a hand tool, and it's got a little blade in here that'll pivot all around both sides, and you can pivot it like this and do the outsides of the holes, the face of the holes, and then it's got a little plunger here. You push down and it pushes a little arm plunger in there, which lines that blade up perpendicular, or aligns it with this shaft so you can stick it down in a hole. So then if you stick it so it's like this for doing, you're sticking it through the hole and then pulling back and deburring, you run that through there, and then it comes back out and it'll pull out flat when you go through the hole. So to start it, you push it like that, run it through the hole, and then just spin it until it feels good. Push the plunger and pull it back out, and that deburred that hole. Okay, the holes are all deburred, the number 6s and the number 40s. I'm going to use the countersink to countersink these number 40 holes a little bit to receive flathead rivets. And so this countersink, this is a number 40 100 degree countersink, and it's 1/4 inch threaded for a threaded drill bit. Well, I've got this angled drill bit kit, and it comes with this little shank adapter, so I can screw that on there and use it in a standard chuck drill. Oh. Well, there we go. I'll just do these just a little bit. These 40 holes. I use number 3 flathead rivets for these nut plates, but they've got a special rivet for these. So this is a number 3. This is the special rivet. This is a regular number 3 rivet. You can see the difference in the size of the heads. The shank, get it in there. The shank is the same size. It's still 3/32, but the head is a lot bigger, so they don't need the torsional strength, the pull strength on this. They just need enough shear strength on there to keep the nut plate from spinning when you put screw in there. So we don't have to, these will work on like sheet metal and thin metal, so you don't have to countersink so deep and get a big walled out hole. See, that little screw just doesn't take much countersinking for it to fit down in there nice and tight. That fits pretty flush in there. We'll go ahead and finish doing those, and then I'm going to change the countersink to use for deburring these bigger holes, because that one is just chattering too much. So I don't really have a countersink that'll fit in this diameter holes for these number 6 screws. I do have this countersink here, and I just lightly go over these screw holes and take the burrs off of them with it. Doesn't hurt to countersink it a little bit. It chamfers that hole a little bit, makes it a little easier for the screws to go in. Okay, those are all prepped. The holes are all prepped. I want to take and set the nut plates up there to put them in. And this is a fixed nut plate. It's number 632. These are stainless steel and they're non-magnetic. So I'm going to put these on this edge in particular because the compass goes right here. This is a Cleco pliers, and this is a Cleco. Got a little pin here, a spring in there, and then little clamps there that slide down. Push down on that spring, and those go down and collapse, and they'll fit right in the size of this hole. And in the rivet hole here, so we get those clamped up just like that. I've got all the nut plates Clecoed onto the instrument panel, onto the flange. They're all ready to start riveting. You can see how they line up. You can see the threads and the rivet hole. I can spin this one around a little bit. You can see how it's offset there now, and then it lines up perfectly with it. That's what that jig does for you. I've drilled those out before using a nut plate for a jig, and it works okay, but not near as well as one of these regular jigs. And there's what they look like from underneath. Now we'll take one of these little rivets and drop in there. Make sure we got enough rivet sticking through. Oh yeah, there's enough on that one. Okay, we'll set that rivet. We'll go all the way around that like that, and then pull the Clecos out and do the ones that the Clecos are in. This is a hand rivet squeezer. It just squeezes like this. You put whatever sets you want into this yoke here on the outside, and then this piston shaft, and then just squeeze it together. Now this one happens to be set up with a dimpling die, which puts that 100-degree dimple in the sheet metal, and use that on thin sheet metal that you don't that's too thin to countersink out with a countersink bit. Now here's the rivet set kit. These are the different sets for the hand rivet squeezer, and these are the dimpling dies. This is the set that I just showed you. I just took out of the tool, and these are all for different sizes of holes, of rivets, all from 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s. And then these are flat dies, anvils, whatever. And then these are for brazier head rivets here. These are for the round-headed rivets. Again, you got 3, 4, 5, and 6s. And usually with these 3, 4, 5s, and 6s, you'll use one of those on the side that has the brazier head or the round head, and then you use a flat one on the other side to make the bucktail or the shop head. So this one here, I ground it small so for doing those number 4 nut plates to get in there, so it's got a real small circle there. So anyway, that's to get it in. I had to leave it wide down here at the bottom so that I could get a hold of it so it'd fit in the piston or the yoke, either one, and not go through it. but to get enough room to get in to do those small nut plates and some other things, I had to have that one. This one I ground down flat to reach down into some channel to set some rivets in a channel, and then these are just the standard rivet sets here. Well, we'll put 2 of these flat ones in to do these flat head rivets. We want a shop head bucktail on one end, and the other end is a flat head rivet, so we'll squeeze them flat. Okay, here's the first rivet. This is on the end of the panel. I laid the panel down so it's a little bit easier to see with this. I had it standing up for drilling the holes in it, but it's easier to see everything with it laying down. So just take the rivet squeezer and put it in there, kind of center it on the rivet, make sure it's all flush with the surface, and just give it a squeeze, and there's a nice beautiful shop head on it right there. Just perfect, easy as pumpkin pie. This is rivet setter squeezer. Comes with 2 different yokes on it. There's actually a smaller one that's lighter, but it doesn't have the reach, and I put this one on because I had to reach in to pretty deep on that panel on those radio racks when I built those to get in there to set the rivets in on that. So I put this longer yoke on. It's a little bit heavier than the other one, but it works just as well, so I'm not going to change it right now. Okay, here's what the shop head looks like when it's done. This one, and there's what the rivets look like. They're nice and you can see them, but boy, you can't feel them. They're just about perfect. I can feel that hole, but I can't feel that rivet. Rivet head, like a nice bucktail on that side. We'll keep going and get the rest of these done. Yeah, I got all the rivets in, the first rivets in for the nut plates, and they went in real nice. You can run your finger across them and you can't feel a dip in there where the rivet heads are too deep, and they don't protrude at all. So they're just about perfect. And the bucktails all look real nice on them. I did try, these are, what are they? These are NAS 197 AD3-3s that I'm using, and I did try a 4 in there because that is a thick metal that it's going through. And let's see, this is the 4 here, and it did turn out okay. It didn't nail over or anything, but it's just right on the verge of being too long. So I went back to the 3s. I was kind of worrying maybe that the 3s were a little too short, but they're not. They're fine. They actually look good. So we'll take those clecos out and put those back in my cleco stand and finish that up. Okay, that little job is done. It turned out pretty good, if I do say so. And do a little inspection here on it now. So far, all the bucktails look good. Shop heads. And all the rivet heads look good. So I run my finger over it and think maybe I could feel one, but it's the hole here going into that hole that I can feel, not the rivet heads at all. So those will disappear when they're painted. Not that anybody's going to see them anyway, because the boot cowl sheet metal will go over the top of them, but they're not going to braid on it or anything like that. So, looking good. Make sure I got them all in there. Everyone has a rivet in it. Everyone is set.